more politically, I shouldn't say, in my lifetime, I'll say that because that's what I can speak for, has always been more accepting of others than many societies. In Japan, for instance, right now, today, if you're not Japanese in Japan, you're screwed. And I mean, if you're Korean in Japan, you're screwed because if you're not Japanese, you're not going to make it. You're just not.
That's why the whole people of color thing makes no sense to me. It's like, because Japanese and Chinese people count as people of color. But if you look, the Japanese make about 33% higher than the national average. The Chinese make about 18 or 19%. I don't know what the numbers are now with the pandemic, but still, the Chinese and Japanese have traditionally made more money than white people
in this country.
In this country, yeah,
right, mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yet they're like, oh, the people of color. Here's something else. Walter Rhodes pointed out that since the 1990s, when you take two-parent family black couples, they both have a college education. When you correct for factors in region, the difference between their income and white people in that category is not very high. It's when you correct for the number of people who are in that category, that's where you start seeing more disparities. Mm-hmm. So they don't break down the data. They just come up with the idea of, well, you're a person of color. And I'm like, well, I don't know even what that means. Yeah. Like, I've never seen a person that has zero color in their skin. I don't know. But and at the same time, I would say to people who are maybe on the conservatives, sometimes people are like, oh, well, let's stop talking about the race thing. Stop talking. The fact is that they just won't let us. So sometimes when black folks talk about it, they're not necessarily trying to perpetuate it. They're trying to break down what might have happened. Like when black people ask, what would have happened if those were black protesters or if those were black rioters? I think it's a smart thing for white folks who are conservative or what have you, libertarian, to instead of saying, well, let's not talk about race, just listen. Because there's not a single black person, regardless of what their political orientation is, that's not going to ask that question. You can't make it go away. The things that we hear and see. Mm-hmm. I've had supervisors who I walk in, I'm doing a job, and I hear them yelling. I've heard them yelling the N-word, not knowing I'm there. These are the types of things that we experience. So it's not. So like when people talk about, well, let's not talk about race, it's like, don't assume that we actually are the ones that want it to be around. A lot of times people will say that, but that's not what they really mean. Donald Trump didn't have a tweet for the last 2 months of the election that didn't include how much he was doing for black people. Yeah. The Republicans mentioned it time and time again. Single parent home and the black family, this and that. So the reality is that we're forced to confront it. We at least want to try to understand it. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that I want to look at it. It doesn't mean I'm looking at all white people as this or that. It means political correctness is not going to solve the problem for us. The fact is that 10 times, when you break down the figures, young black men 18 to 24 are 10 times more likely to be murderers, at least in 1993, because we're going back to those figures. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to be 10 times more likely per 100,000. You can't make that go away. You have to. There's something going on. I mean, we can be jolly and run in a field and say, oh, well, every shooter is a shooter, but there's something wrong that has to be dealt with.
Well, and that goes back to what you're talking about with facts. Okay, you can note a fact, but then you need to be careful before you make assumptions on that fact.
Yes.
You mentioned black males getting killed. City of St. Louis is, what is it? Is it 60% black? I don't know, something like that.
50, 60, somewhere.
Okay. So let's say it's a little bit more than 50% black. Far more than 50% of the murders in St. Louis are black people.
Yes.
And the same with the people who pull the trigger.
Yes.
Now, you can't say, okay, that's a fact.
Yes.
But it's wrong to say, well, it's obvious black people are all murderers. That's not what that means.
No.
You can look at the you can look at the facts and you can say, okay, this is happening. Let's see why this is happening. But you can't make a dopey assumption like that.
Right. And you have to solve a problem, you have to talk about the problem. And that's kind of my problem with a lot of the Trump supporters who, when Trump would say something about Mexicans or black people, he'd say, hey, don't be political correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it goes wrong on the other side, they're like, hey, let's not talk about race. Sorry, Donald Trump was not a race neutral candidate. I'm not saying he was a Nazi, but he brought it up a lot. Okay. So for them to get upset when people ask, what if they had been black people? When Donald Trump specifically said, vote for me because what do you have to lose? Because your community, black people, sucks. He did say that. He also said he's going to stop the carnage in his inaugural speech, which a lot of black folks are like, well, he keeps talking about the inner city. That sounds like he's talking about us. Now, are there white people who live there? Yeah, but honestly, in most inner cities, disproportionate number of the murder victims are going to be black and Latino.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't go down that road and then inspire your people to act like savages, get them killed, and all of a sudden ask the black guy who's pointing this out, hey, man, could you just kind of like forget about the race thing and let's all be peaceful? That makes you look like the very snowflakes you called everyone else. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You can't have it. That's my problem with the Trump fold, is if you want to be hardcore, stay hardcore when things go bad. You don't just get to be hardcore when you win an election. Now you're in trouble.
Well,
you messed up.
And again,
so
we need to be men and women of character, because if we do that, then we can move forward to just make everything better for everyone else. And what I mean by that is we all agree. Everybody has to agree, except for those who are not logical people, that Donald Trump did some good things. And the perfect example would be on how he's handled China. Because there couldn't be anybody more diametrically opposed to Donald Trump than Joe Biden. Joe Biden's China policy is going to be 100% the same as Donald Trump's. It's not going to change at all. Zero. He said that. So what does that mean? Okay, the guy's done something right.
Policy. It means good policy.
If Trump had said, look, we won in 17, we didn't win in 20, it was a nice run. Hey, thanks for your support. Here's your new guy. I'm going to work with him, but I'm also going to be in the background because I'm not going to give up. I'm going to still do what I think I need to be doing. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America. Things would have been fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that didn't happen.
And I didn't necessarily expect him to do that in the right way, but I also didn't expect him to. I would be lying if I said I expected this to happen. I didn't even think about it. I thought they'd protest, they'd yell, maybe someone throw a couple boxes, but I didn't realize he told them to go down there. Which is, that's where you get into the problem, because if you tell someone in a big mob to go down there and he said, we're getting fed up.
Well, the USA Today at a campaign style rally, I'm going to read this from the USA Today, at a campaign style rally or an hour or so before the mob broke through the police lines at the Capitol, Trump had urged them to go to the building.
Yes.
That's from USA Today. Okay. Yes. And USA Today is, I would call them a responsible news source. They may leave stuff out and tell part of a story, but they're not going to throw BS up there.
Right.
They wouldn't have said that unless that was true. I believe that source.
Well, I heard it when he listened to the speech. You hear him say that to go down there. And my problem is that there's a lot of people, and it's mostly online, because I don't think most people voted for Trump are just Republicans.
I think so. I think so too.
I think they would have voted for Cruz or whatever. I think Trump did better. I think Trump was a more powerful candidate than Cruz or Rubio for various reasons, because he was able to draw in these people who are beyond Republicans. The problem is these people beyond Republicans, these people had nice lives.
Yeah.
But there's something about it that one thing I didn't like about Trump is he sounded just like those black men that I remember when I was a kid that breathed death in their ear every year. No matter what I did, hey man, those white people, man, they're not gonna let you do anything. Oh, those white people, they're calling you the N-word when you're not. And there was these, I remember all these adult black men would say this crap to me about how it doesn't matter what I did. You can't do that. And it was just everything. But Trump kind of started doing that too. When he first started, he threw in some positive. But he got to a point, especially at the end, where he just was, it was always breathing death in their ear. Oh, the QAnon and this and that and all this. And I think it got to them to where they didn't care about their nice lives. I mean, why would a woman, a former 14-year, she dealt with possible death her whole career as an Army veteran. And then she comes down here to die in the Capitol.
Yeah.
What drives somebody? She had a nice life from what I can, from all you can see. She had stuff, more stuff than most people in the world.
Yeah.
But she was so angry that she wanted to jump through the window in the face of people who have guns when she was trained. She knows what they were supposed to do when she does that.
Yeah.
It's not like
I don't get that, but that's what despots do. A despot rules on the mindset of the doomed and the damned. I mean, and to say, and they say this every year. Why, this is the most important election of our life. Well, yeah, until the next one. That's when the sensationalism of that is the same thing as the sensationalism that says, you know what? If you want to get the pretty girl, you better buy this car.
It's exactly that. It's all advertising.
Yeah.
There's no difference between political messaging and advertising.
But what I don't understand, James, here's what I don't get. I would say 99.999% of the people who see the commercial that if you want to get the pretty girl, you must buy this car. They laugh at that. But when a political candidate or somebody like that gets up and says, the world is coming to an end unless you vote for me, a unbelievable amount of people believe that. I've had people who are smart people whom I respect tell me, you do know there's going to be a civil war. I said, what? What?
Yeah.
What?
Yep. A lot of people.
And the one individual who told me this, he's got tons of money. He's very successful. There's nothing that he wants in this world.
It somehow these leaders on both sides, because the people who support AOC, they're the same way in a different way.
It's the same thing, but they just turn the words around. It's a different it's a different despot.
They create this idea that part of it's also fear too. When you have stuff, there's this lingering fear that, hey, someone can come get it. Someone's going to come take it. And that's part of it. But I think also part of it is that our political identities have become our personal identities now. And I think that seems like it's a change. I don't know. Like I said, I know that people were polarized in the 50s and 60s, but I think it's a little different now with cable news and the Tea Party and with Black Lives Matter and all this stuff. People are defining themselves and the TV is so powerful because it bypasses your consciousness. You go to sleep and you go, that's stupid. But then you go to sleep and you wake up and your mind is like, well, that wasn't so stupid. And that's how advertising works. Do you know anyone that says, I'm going to buy that car because I saw Charles Barkley talking to Larry Bird? No.
Nobody.
But it works.
It does work. It does work.
It works when you forget about it.
If it didn't work, they wouldn't employ them.
No. And that's a huge part of economics is the use of advertising. So people don't realize it's the same thing with political messaging. Political messaging is designed to bypass your consciousness. Like the things people say about COVID-19. I'm sorry. No, I'm not a scientist, but the crap that you're saying, I actually do believe that there's a lot of places where you should wear a mask. No question. At the same time, when I was sitting in a restaurant, the people were eating, and the person bringing over the food was like, hey, I need you to put your mask on when I deliver your food.
Yeah, see, that's ridiculous.
And then they had to put it on for literally 2 seconds, and then they took it off. What?